Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we're looking at the Cheetah, the 25-ton aerospace fighter that was produced for the Free Worlds League, at least primarily. Getting into this today, originally designed for the Star League, the Cheetah was a light support and reconnaissance aerospace fighter, boasting a maximum acceleration of 9 gravities and a safe acceleration of 6. Uh, the Cheetah's the Cheetah is among the fastest and most agile fighters in existence and features a good weaponry loadout for its size. This speed is necessary as with only 3 tons of armor and a solid hit by a heavy laser or missile volley can cause serious trouble. 4 tons of fuel provide adequate range, although the idea that the GM 250 a power plant consumes more fuel than usual is just an old wives' tale, another urban legend that the fighter's agility suffers when operating in an aerospace uh, atmosphere is also false, though its extreme accelerations are physically punishing to its pilot. The Cheetah is in continuous production from its introduction up until the downfall of the Star League, when the Free Worlds League copied the design and retooled several of their factories to continue producing them. It has since become a standard light aerospace fighter for the Free Worlds League military, appearing in nearly every FWLM aero formation. It has performed well in many roles, especially escorting dropships, with many assault squadrons using Cheetahs for long range patrols and fast corner runs. Now, weapons and equipment on this fighter here, the well armed for a light aerospace fighter, the F-10 Cheetah has a Starfish 1 or I small laser in the nose and two Starfish 2 medium lasers in each wing. The lasers give the Cheetah a heavy punch for supporting other fighters or ground troops. All right, getting into the other variations that we have here today, we do have the F-11, the upgraded 9 or 19. My goodness, 3051 variant produced by the Free Worlds League. The F-11 eventually became the fighter's standard production model, correcting many of the flaws of the original. It uses the GM 250A XL engine and changes the armor from armor to ferro aluminum, increasing the amount of armor protection by half a ton. The lasers are also changed to a small pulse laser and two medium pulse lasers, while 2 tons of additional fuel give it a longer linger time. Now we have the F-11R, the 2802 reconnaissance version of the F-11R, strips the two medium lasers and adds 2 tons of fuel. This version is not intended to fight an enemy, as the single small laser uh, can only offer only a token resistance to anything else. Now we have the F-11RR in 3054. Upgrade to the reconnaissance version, the F-11RR replaces the standard fusion engine to a 250XL engine, adds uh, back to the Starfish 2 medium lasers, and increases its fuel capacity to 10 tons, giving this variant superior range and firepower. Now we have the F-12A, a failed prototype. This Cheetah variant was developed in 3021. It trades the standard 250 rated engine to a 275 model, increasing the speed slightly. However, to make room for the large laser, the F-12A had to remove the medium lasers and a ton of armor, leaving it with a single small laser and 2 tons of armor protection. The WLM ordered MSTAR to shut down the design production line and canceled all orders. Now we have the F-12S. The 2868 F-12S removes the medium lasers and 1 ton of fuel, replacing them with a SRM 4 pack and 1 ton of ammo. With the reduced range, this variant is used primarily as a defensive craft for installations and dropships. Then we finally get to the F 13 here. This 3069 model upgrades the lasers to extended range models. The mounts are, er, and mounts an additional ER medium laser in each wing. The armor is changed to ferro-aluminum for better protection, and double heat sinks are added for a better cooling management system. All right, and then we get to the F-14S. This 3052 Cheetah variant replaces the standard weapons with a pair of Streak SRM-2 launchers. It also carries 5.5 tons of armor. We have the OF-17 Hawkeye. This special reconnaissance variant removes all of the standard weapons and armor and replaces them with the hyperstructural imager, vehicular stealth armor, and a Guardian ECM suite. By shutting down their engines and using a ballistic flight path, several of these cheetahs sailed past Terra's defenses before occupation score came to humanity's birth world. The last minute data gathered by these units allowed coalition commanders to modify their strategy. Then we get the F 17AR. So, this version of the OF-17 uses a small cockpit to make room for two aft-mounted small lasers, retaining the vehicular stealth armor and hyper spectral imager of the OF-17. This, uh, which is fine, but the cramped cockpit has led to complaints from the Lyran pilots assigned to it. Unfortunately, the Lyran procurement agency isn't willing to listen, so the pilots will have to live with the cramped conditions and useless small lasers. Now we have the Cheetah 2C, the clan variant. This variant is produced by Wolf the Wolf Empire and is apparently inspired by the Thrust Nanook laser reflective armor. Protects the hull and an XXL engine and small cockpit, free enough mass to install a quartet of improved heavy lasers and a light active probe. Now, keeping in mind for a lot of the clan aerospace pilots, when they're genetically bred, they are genetically bred smaller, so a small cockpit would actually work maybe a little bit better for them than what probably most Lyran pilots are having to deal with. Okay, so design quirks. The F-12A Cheetah variant is subject to the following design quirks. So just noting this, atmospheric flyer, bad reputation, and difficult to maintain. The OF-17AR Cheetah variant is subject to the following design quirks, having an improved life support and modular weapons. Getting to our pictures that we have here today, we have the original one here done by David Dietrich. Now, this is for the 3025 technical readout. Nicely done and the cornerstone of what we think of today. And then we get a upgraded version of that picture if the computer wants to load. All right, here we go. So this is for the revised 3025 technical readout, and this is done by Mike and Jim Nilsson. Uh, Actually, Nielsen and Jim Nelson, um, based off the original work by David Dietrich. Okay, then last but not least, we have one more picture. Now, this is of the OF-17AR variant of the fighter, and this is by Alex Iglesias. Um, kind of going from there. It's a nice small little fighter. Wonderful to have, you know, being able to bring it out and all that. And then we're going to get this into our D6 version of the role playing game. So I do want to add in here because we always get our price tag from, or typically we get our price tag from here because I'm not opening up some of the other books that would have it. So it does come to us for a cost of 1,669 1,669,000. If I can only speak here this afternoon, I'm just having a rough time. And 463 C bills. So I'm sure that many of us could probably find that in our, you know, dresser drawer somewhere or whatever, and get a fleet of these going, if only. And going from there, let's get on over and take a look at our D6 stats for this bird. All right, so taking a look here, the cheetah at Walker scale, like what we've been keeping all of them at, has a tonnage of 25, crew of one, zero passengers, cargo capacity is 45 kilograms, or roughly about 100 pounds. Full coverage, again, that cost being 1,669,463 seabells, has a maneuverability of 40 plus 1. Now, with its lightweight and its overthrust speed being an 18, that's how we're coming up with that. Now, uh, like I said, our overthrust is 18. That's where we're getting our space speed from, which does convert down to being an atmospheric speed of 1,600 kilometers an hour. We have a body strength of 2D plus 2, being a 25-ton vehicle, and it does have a listing of 58 armor points. So if you wanted to do that instead of just a 2D plus 2, however you want to work that. All right, getting into our weapons here, we have listed as the two medium lasers, one in each wing. So front firing, fire control is going to be at 2D, and damage is 60 with the two of them being fire length. And then our small laser in the nose, uh, of course, fire arc is going to be front then. Um, and I don't have the scale correct down here because I grabbed it from another one, just making it easier. But it shouldn't be Starfighter; it should be Walker. And seeing that if I'm changing that, I better double check and make sure I have the damage correct here. Because sometimes when I'm changing things, I don't realize I'm actually changing a little bit more here. So let's see, this is a medium laser. Seeing I have all that printed out to make it easier for myself. Your small laser. I'm sorry. Okay, actually, I did have that correct at a 2D for Starfighter scale. So this is actually 4D as a small laser. Okay, so we have it changed, seeing it's at Walker scale. Trying to make sure I keep everything honest with us so that way we can have these things correct. All right, and then that kind of rounds out the fighter. It's a nice little fighter. It always looked kind of nice. I always liked the lines of this fighter. Now it is a lighter fighter, being honest, because typically, and I've said some of this stuff before, we worked on small units. Typically, the largest we really went was maybe having a small company. And I never really had aerospace fighters because I didn't have a big enough unit really to start warranting to have aerospace fighters. I would have at most maybe 12 mechs. But most of the time when we were running around, we were just doing single mechs, maybe a Lance of four, um, and just kind of going from there. So uh, all the things that, as a role playing game, I could easily go from one to the other or whatever else a little bit easier that way than I can if I'm doing it as an actual uh, Battletech game. Because when we're just on the battlefield and you're seeing that this is going through how many boards in one swoop, it gets kind of hard to try and figure things out. So we just left everything as mechs, or occasionally I would throw out maybe a tank or so for someone to go up against. But we didn't really get a lot of the aerospace. Not saying that they weren't good looking craft, especially with what we're looking at here today, and many of the others. I do like a lot of the looks of a lot of the aerospace fighters that we've had. It's just we never really got into doing all the other stuff. And I know I've heard a lot of comments from those that are watching this series of different things that they had done, gotten a little bit more into the units and everything else than what we had ever created. Um, and it's just wonderful stories, wonderful adventures that you guys have had. So it's always wonderful when you guys drop those into the comments, and then I can hear the adventures that you guys have, and which is really what this all really comes down to. It's just having the adventures. Yeah, okay, they may not be physically real, but you know what? They're still adventures, and it's still a lot of fun. Uh, we can always tease, me and my friends, we can always tease each other about the silly things that we had done when we were doing the different role playing games. And some of the things I'd like to be able to do with this, so hopefully I can introduce his son and his son-in-law into some of this in a larger world, just running it as a D6 game. Um, Not saying that we couldn't do the Battletech itself, trying to teach them too much stuff and trying to do it in a small amount of time, that starts getting a little bit more hectic. So, trying to keep it in a system that they've already been exposed to makes this a little bit easier for me as well as for, say, my best friend. So, with that being said, thank you so very much for joining me today. It's always wonderful having you here. I hope you're doing well, and I will see you in the next video.